The Bible Story, Part 1, Story 1, Back to the Beginning. Have you ever wondered how everything in the world began? I suppose so. Most boys and girls do sometime or other. Those beautiful flowers in your garden, for instance, sweet peas, snapdragons, asters, hollyhocks, pansies. Where did they come from? Seeds, you say. True, but whence came the seeds? From other flowers, of course, and those flowers from still other seeds, and so on back to where? There's your dog. Where did he come from? We got him as a puppy, you say, and he has a very fine pedigree. So, that means you know his father's name, and maybe his grandfather's. But how about before that? One thing you can be very sure of, your dog's grandfather was once a puppy too, and he had a father and a grandfather, and so on back to when? Then there's that rooster in your neighbour's yard that's crowing all the time. Where did he come from? An egg, you say. Right, but a hen laid that egg, didn't she? To be sure she did, and she came from an egg herself not so long ago, and that egg was laid by another hen, and so on back to what? Then there's yourself. Where did you come from? Oh, you say, Mother brought me home from the hospital. I suppose she did, but Mother was a little baby once herself, wasn't she? And so was her mother, and her grandmother, and her great-grandmother, and so on back to whom? Think of the mountains too and the wooded hills, the flowing rivers and the sand on the seashore, all the wonderful things of nature. Were they always here just as you see them now? Or did they too have a beginning? And if so, when and how? Many great men have tried to explain these things, and they have come up with all sorts of strange ideas and suggestions, most of them far from the truth. There is only one place where you will find the true story, and that is in the Bible. If you will open this wonderful book, you will find that the very first part is called Genesis, meaning the book of beginnings. Here you will find the answer to all your questions. And that reminds me of a little girl I know. Once I asked her which chapter of the Bible she liked best. I thought she would say, the 23rd Psalm, the one that begins, "The Lord is my shepherd." But no, she said, the first chapter of Matthew. I suppose you like it because it tells about how Jesus was born, I said. Oh no, she said. I like it best because it's all about the begats. The what? I asked. The begats, she said. So I opened my Bible and turned to Matthew 1, and there it was. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas, and so on. I asked her if she knew what it meant, and she said, no, but I do like the begats. So I told her it meant that Abraham had a little boy, and Isaac had a little boy, and Jacob had a little boy, and so on, but I think she still liked the begats best. Then I told her that, put the other way round, it would read, and Jacob had a daddy, and Isaac had a daddy, and Abraham had a daddy, and so on. She liked that better, but wondered how far back the story goes. I told her what Luke says about it. In his 3rd chapter, verse 34, Luke picks up the story at Abraham and carries it back farther and farther and farther. He tells us that Abraham was the son of Thara, which was the son of Nachor, which was the son of Saruch, and so on. Such strange names. But they were names of real boys in the long, long ago. Then, having told us the names of Abraham's great-grandpa and great-great-grandpa, and so on, Luke says that Enos was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which, how very, very wonderful, which was the Son of God. There the story ends. And it ends there because it cannot go any farther. It goes clear back to God and stops, and that's where you go back to. And Daddy, and Mama, and everybody's daddy and mama, everybody's grandpa and grandma, everybody's great-grandpa and great-grandma. They all go back across the years, across the centuries, to God. Not to a monkey, not to a tiny tadpole in the sea, but to the great and glorious God who made the world and man. And that's exactly what we read in the first words of the first chapter of the Bible. In the beginning, God. Story 2. How Everything Began. Many years ago, I read a story about a boy who picked up a strange little object on the street. It was shaped like a horseshoe and had a mysterious name written on it. The boy tried to pronounce the name but failed. He tried again and again. Then one day, as he said the word a different way, the object began to grow in his hand. It became bigger and bigger until at last, the horseshoe was as big as a doorway. He stepped through it and found himself in a foreign country, far across the sea. Day by day, using his horseshoe, he visited all sorts of strange places. Then he thought he would like to see how people lived long ago. So as he whispered the magic word to the horseshoe, he said he would like to visit Rome in the days of the Caesars. And presto, there he was. Of course, it was only a made-up story, but it does give us an idea. Would you like to go and see what the world was like back in the very beginning of time? You would? All right. Let's imagine that there is an archway through which we can pass and travel back across the years. Steady now, careful. Now we are going through it. Everything around us is fading away. Chairs, table, carpet, radio set are all disappearing. Faces are growing dim. Lights are going out. It is getting darker and darker. Swiftly we speed back across the years. It's like being in a rocket plane. We streak over hundreds and thousands of years in a moment. Past the time when Jesus lived on earth. Past the time of David. Past the time of Abraham. Past the time of Noah. Past the time of Adam. Oh dear, how dark it is. We can't see anything. All about us it is pitch black. Not a glimmer of light anywhere. Not the tiniest candle. Not the faintest star, only darkness and night. But we can hear something. It is the swishing, gurgling sound that water makes, just as we have heard it many a time at the seaside or when boating on a lake. Water and darkness. As the Bible says, darkness was upon the face of the deep. Of a sudden we realize we are not alone. Somebody is here. We know it. We feel it. Amid the darkness, the emptiness, the loneliness, God is here. The Spirit of God is moving upon the face of the waters. God is looking upon the world He has created, planning what He will do with it. Suddenly, from somewhere, we cannot tell where, we hear a voice. Musical, strong, resonant, unlike any voice we have heard before, it commands the darkness to give place to light. Instantly, the darkness vanishes. We can see again. Not very far. Only a few feet, a few yards perhaps, because all around us is a thick mist. But how wonderful is the light after the dark. There is no blue sky, no bright sunshine, only a sort of brilliant fog, and under it water, everywhere. No land, just this vast, restless, heaving ocean. Not a man or a woman, not a boy or a girl, not a bird or an animal. No, not even a fish in the sea. Only light in the mist and on the water. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. The first day, the very beginning of everything in this old world. The beginning of time, the beginning of history. The beginning of all the happiness and sorrow of mankind. For it was on this day that the great and loving Creator, with a wonderful purpose in mind, drew near this blacked-out planet, this dark little speck in space, and said, "Let there be light." Story 3. Great Preparations. As the light of Earth's first day fades into night, something strange and wonderful begins to happen. Silently, mysteriously, the heavy, moisture-laden mist that has held close to the ocean begins to rise. All night, And all the next morning it goes up, 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 until it becomes a beautiful fleecy white, covering high above the world. Between it and the water below, there is clear, fresh air, forming the atmosphere, or the firmament, as the Bible calls it. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. Perhaps you are wondering why God took one whole day of creation week to make something invisible like the atmosphere, when he gave one day to making the fish in the sea and another to making the animals. But things are not unimportant just because they cannot be seen. The fact is that what God did on the second day was of very great importance. Everything else depended on it. You see, he was planning to make a beautiful world and fill it with living creatures, and they would all need air to breathe. He planned to make birds too, and they would need air in which to fly. Without it, they would be earthbound. He was also about to make trees and plants and flowers, and he knew they would need nitrogen to help them grow. So he mixed it with oxygen and made air. Just the right amount of each, not too much and not too little. Had he mixed in too little oxygen, all his creatures would have suffocated. Had he mixed in too much, one spark would have set the world on fire. God had yet another reason in making the air first. It was to divide the waters above, that is, in the clouds from the waters under, or in the ocean. The air was to be a barrier between them. Without it, raindrops from a mile-high cloud would have hit the earth like machine gun bullets, and one heavy downpour would have just about destroyed everything. How wise was it of God to make the atmosphere first, right after he had made light and before he made anything else? To have done otherwise would have been a dreadful mistake. His whole lovely plan might have been spoiled. But God does not make mistakes. And as we think of how he made the world, we feel like saying with Paul, "Oh, the depth of the riches both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out." And now Earth's second day is ending. The beautiful white cloud is changing colour. Shot through with gold, orange, red, purple, it slowly vanishes in darkness as night draws on. 2 days have gone, 2 out of 6, and all that can be seen is the ocean, the great, endless ocean. No land, no living creature, nothing but water. North, south, east, west, only water, water, water. The restless waves rolling on, to nowhere. In the darkness of the third evening, it seems as though God has done nothing but lift the moisture-laden mist from the ocean. But he knows better. He is not impatient. He is not hurried. He knows that all is now ready for the next great step in creation. Listen. He is speaking again. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." Suddenly the great ocean begins to boil and seethe. There is a mighty shaking and shuddering as out of its depths rise the first needle points of land. Swiftly continents and islands take shape. Mountains and hills move upward as water drains from their sides in foaming cataracts. What a night! What a day! As morning dawns on the third day and light shines through the radiant cloud once more, it reveals no longer only an ocean, but great stretches of dry land. It is beautiful land with lakes, rivers and waterfalls, and beyond it all the sea. How very wonderful. Yesterday only an ocean. Today a beautiful world. Now we know for sure that God has a great plan in mind. He is building something, building a home for somebody he loves. Story 4, Birthday of a World. It is still early on the third day of Creation Week. There has been a very great earthquake. Land has mysteriously risen out of the ocean. Islands of all sizes and shapes have appeared. Majestic mountains, rolling hills, and lovely beaches are to be seen where before was only sea. Yet there is something the matter. The land looks dark and barren save for bright, glittering patches here and there where precious metals lie on the surface. There is not a tree or a bush or a blade of grass anywhere. Surely God does not intend that anyone shall live in a place like this. Wait a minute. It is too soon to judge. Listen, God is speaking once more. The same wonderful voice which said, "Let there be light," now commands, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth." Now look, what a transformation! Look at those hills! They are barren no more. They have turned a vivid green. From one side to the other, they are covered with grass, bushes, trees. Look at the mountains. See those glorious pines, cedars, redwoods, reaching clear to the top of the highest peaks, and the fields. What beauty! Look at all the flowers, masses of them of all kinds and colours. They look like a living carpet laid over the whole countryside. Buttercups and daisies, poppies and marigolds, bluebells and daffodils, hollyhocks and snapdragons, geraniums and delphiniums, orchids and begonias, roses and lilacs. How did God think of so many? And how marvellously he made them all, each with its own delicate design, its own special colouring and fragrance. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. It must have been very, very good, with God as the designer and maker of it all, and he's so pleased with it. The Bible says that all things were created for his pleasure, and I like to think that he enjoyed himself making all these plants and flowers and trees, each one different from all others, and then giving to all the power to reproduce, each after his kind, through all time to come. God seems to have been specially interested in the trees yielding fruit, or, as we would say, the fruit trees. With what care? He made the apple trees, the plum trees, the pear trees, the orange trees, the lemon trees, the avocado trees, and all the rest, each with its own choice fruit. And I think I can see him moving from one beautiful tree to another, perhaps even tasting the fruit and saying to himself, "He'll like this. I'm sure he will. And this, and this." For God was not thinking of himself, but of someone else, someone who at the moment existed only in his mind, but who soon would be a real, living being, someone to whom he was planning to give all this beauty and loveliness, all this wealth of treasure and delight, all the gold, silver, and precious stones that sparkled and glittered amid the grass and the flowers, all the bountiful provision of nuts, fruits, and grains, all the glory of this wonderful new world. All was for him, to make him happy, to cause him to turn with loving adoration and thankfulness to his Creator. The world was nearly ready for him, nearly, but not quite. There were a few more things to be done. And the evening and the morning were the third day,